Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to our coffee times to talk about horror. And today I bring you my monthly wrap up. It is the wrap up for November for the EvilAthon.
It's coffee time!
Unfortunately, November has been a mess for me. I kind of already anticipated it because I had to go to London for 5 days, which was amazing. 10 out of 10 would recommend, but obviously it took away a lot of time from my reading. And then I had to go to Spain for a week to have surgery. I stayed there with my parents for a couple of days, but I was still working while I was recovering, and I didn't get to read as much as I wanted either. On top of that, it was the EvilAthon, and I was just not on a state to plan and upload as many things as I wanted. And I don't know, it was a little bit frustrating for me as a content creator not to be able to do everything that I wanted, and that is the side that people don't see. I'm really hard on myself sometimes if I don't get things done when I don't have the time. But you know, I was traveling a lot, I had surgery, I was still working, and I just didn't have the time at all that I would have wanted for the EvilAthon this year. And it's really sad for me because I'm really fond of my readathon. So I have decided to already start planning next year's EvilAthon in December because I want to have a clear vision of everything that I'm going to be doing and uploading and all of that, and I want to fully commit to it. So here's to next year. But I did manage to read 8 books during the month of November. Unfortunately, I had one DNF, and I'll get to that. But we're also going to talk about the 8 things that I did read during the month of November. If you're new here, hi, welcome. I'm sorry for that dramatic info and all of that TMI. But we like to rate our books with coffee mugs in this channel, and also I start with the lowest rating so we end up with the highest one on a positive note. So let's go. Let's talk about that DNF. And I do not DNF very often. If you have been following me for a while, you probably know that I have a hard time DNFing books, and I do want to be better at DNFing books. And when I DNF a book, I do not include it on my wrap-up, and I do not write a review on Goodreads either. So the book that I have DNF'd is Whalefall by Daniel Kraus. And I'm really sad about it because I was really looking forward to it because it was going to be a book that is different from what I normally read. And the saddest part is that it was actually the audiobook that I DNF'd. I listened to about an hour and something, and I realized I was not invested. I could care less about the characters of the story. I was just not into it. And I was like, you know, I've listened to over an hour. I'm bored. I don't want to keep listening to this. I want to do something else. And I decided, you know what? Let's DNF it. I'm not gonna push through all the hours in the audiobook just to realize that I did not enjoy it. So I DNF'd it. I'm sorry. Now let's go to the books that I did actually read and finish. So first of all, we have our own unique Affliction. This is by Scott J. Moses, and it really pains me that I gave this book such a low rating, but it was just definitely not for me. I was really excited because this is a book about vampires that explores vampires going through grief, and I was like, this is going to be amazing. I love the cover. But then when I started reading it, at the beginning, you know, it was still fine, and then the book got so confusing that I was lost. The story was told through time jumps, inner monologue, and kind of bits of consciousness from our main character, and it made everything so complicated to follow. It just was messy, and I couldn't get into it. We also have here an unreliable narrator, and I don't mind that at all, but the rest of the book was just confusing, so I was not even, let's say, intrigued or interested about the narrator at all. The author was trying to do something new with the vampire tropes and the vampire tales, and I really appreciate that, truly. However, the way that the book was, let's say, put together was not my cup of tea, because the way that the author mixed, you know, the truth and the real bits with the surreal parts of the story made it just so confusing and messy. And I don't know if I'm the only one, but honestly, it was really hard to follow. I read this book in one go because it's a short book. I think it's a novella length, so I read it on the train back from London, but I just wanted to finish it. Like, I was like, let's go. It was on my Kindle, which is good because I was able to, you know, go faster when it comes to reading, because I do read a little bit faster on my Kindle than on physical form. But nevertheless, I think if this would have been physical or a chunkier book, I would have definitely DNF'd it. I appreciated a story from a vampire's perspective that talks about family and about laws and all of those things. I also love when vampires talk about the meaning of existence, considering that they are immortal beings. However, as I said, I was not a fan of this book. I did not enjoy it, so I cannot recommend it. But if you enjoy books about vampires and you would like to give this novella a try, be my guest, because I'm sure there's people out there that really love this. Next, we're going to talk about William by Mason Coyle, and this is a book that I was really excited to read because we have here an AI, and I don't read enough books that are kind of horror with a little bit of sci-fi, and I thought this was going to be the perfect blend, and it truly was a very unique book. It's kind of horror, sci-fi, and psychological thriller all packed into this tiny book. The book had great pacing and the chapters were short, and I feel like this is a book that you can just binge in one sitting, so it's gonna be perfect for people that just want to be immersed in a book for a day, and especially for people that love sci-fi horror. We follow Henry. He is an intelligence robots engineer, and he has agoraphobia. He doesn't want to leave the house. He's trapped home, and his relationship with his wife is starting to deteriorate, partly because of his behavior, you know, not wanting to leave the house and being kind of like always working in his lab. He has his own lab at home and he's working on his projects, and even though his wife is with him and she's pregnant, their relationship is at a very bad moment. Henry has been working on a secret project, and it is an artificial intelligent being called William, and he's working on him, and he is very protective of his project, and he has not talked about it to anybody or shown William to anybody. However, one day his wife brings home some friends, and he decides now is the perfect time to show them William, introduce them to his new creation. And as you can imagine, that introduction does not go very well. This book had a very unique storyline, and even though I would say that certain things were predictable, I really enjoyed that feeling of claustrophobia inside of the house. I loved the descriptions of the place. It really made you feel like you were there with these characters. As a bonus, this book is set on Halloween night, so this is a book that you can definitely pick up for Halloween. I mean, it doesn't have like a huge importance on the story, and it doesn't really go into detail about Halloween or Halloween decorations or whatever, but it is set during Halloween. Overall, I think it was creepy, it had some intensity to it, it was a good psychological thriller. It's a book that might keep you guessing, even though for me some things were predictable, but also it's a book that makes you ask yourself the question, what makes someone human? Next we have The Big Ask by Simon James Green. I got this one during Yelk, and one night at the hotel, I think after Yelk day 2, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna read it, and it is a short, cute read, perfect for me to read in the hotel room before I go to bed, and so I did, and I loved it. And this is so cute and so heartwarming and so perfect. This is a short novella about what happens when you dare to do something that you've always wanted to do, but you were never brave enough to just go and do it, when your insecurities always, you know, kept you from doing what you wanted, but you finally say, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. Alfie is your typical nerd at school, and he decides one day to ask Harvey to go to the dance with him. He thinks Harvey's gonna think it's a joke and he's gonna laugh about it, but actually Harvey says yes. And Alfie is like, what do I do now? What do I do? What do I do?
What do I do?
So he's now petrified and he doesn't know what to do, what the school is going to think about it, because he is very scared of other people's opinions. But this is a book about, you know, being confident in who you are and, you know, not being scared of doing things because of what other people might think. Also, it's a book that shows you that not everything is always as it seems. The story was so fun, it was so cute and so wholesome, and I think this is a perfect story for young queer kids that are in high school and are going through the same things that these characters are going through, that have doubts about themselves. This is such a cool, quick read for queer young kids, and I loved it. I think Simon James Green always writes books that have good messages to them and have important things to say, but at the same time he keeps it cute and fun and wholesome, and I love that. The next book that I read in November was Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay. This had been on my list for a while, but I never got the chance to read it, so I finally decided to pick it up and say hello to Logan. He's decided to crush the party. Logan! Babs, what do we do? Mommy's working. Paul Tremblay is back, giving his unique take on another subgenre of horror, in this case zombies. And this is very, very different from your typical zombie stories. It is very slow paced, and I have the feeling that this book might be a hit or miss for a lot of readers, especially if you go into it expecting a typical kind of virus zombie outbreak kind of story. Instead of focusing on a big outbreak and action-packed moments and the whole world is going to shit, you are in a journey of excruciating pain following two best friends as they are trying to navigate this new world order. The virus has started to spread, and it is a virus that is similar to rabies, and so when you get the virus and it starts to spread through your nervous system, at some point you become very, very violent. Our main characters are friends Natalie and Ramola. So Natalie is pregnant, she's very scared, and she's trying to get to a hospital in the middle of these rabies outbreak, and Ramola is a nurse and she's trying to help her because she has contacts, she knows people at hospitals, and they're both traveling together trying to get help and getting the vaccines and everything that they need to beat this virus. This book is going to take you to very, very dark places. I would say also, if you're currently pregnant or you don't like to read anything about pregnant women going through hell, don't read this book. It's not going to be fun for you, because at the end of the day you're following a woman that is trying to find help to be able to give birth to her baby healthy and trying to survive, and she is put through a lot in this book. In that regard, this book does push some boundaries, so that's why I say it might not be for everybody. This book is a very, very slow pace, and I think that most of the action really is on the third act here, and you know, that's why I also feel like it's not going to be a book that a lot of readers are going to enjoy, especially if you like your horror action-packed and with a lot of kills and all of that. That's not what this book has to offer. If you're interested in a very different, unique take on, I would say, virus outbreak more than zombies per se, I think this book is what you're looking for. The next book is The Mother by Brett McBean, and this is a book that I have recommended to Sharon from Sharon Joy Reads, and only to Sharon, because this book is very disturbing, it's messed up, it is not a happy book, not a happy place. It's very dark and gruesome, and it is violent and vile, and I would definitely not recommend it to people. So, just putting it out there, and I'm not joking. This is not a drill. This is kind of Richard Lehman level of messed up, if not turn up notch. So that's why I would not recommend this book to the general public. And I would only recommend it to people like Sharon and me that are used to reading really gruesome, fucked up stuff. So just putting it out there. So now let's go to my thoughts on the book. This is a very interesting way of telling the story of a mother that is very pissed because somebody has killed her daughter and she is now looking for revenge. So it is a revenge story about a mother. But the way that it's told is very unique and interesting, and I really enjoyed the way that this book was told. Basically, this woman is now hitchhiking through the highways and stuff, and going to rest stops and restaurants trying to find the last guy that her daughter met. The only information she has about the guy that killed her daughter is that he has a tattoo on his, I think it was the left arm, that says "Die Mother." So that's all she knows, all the information that she has, but she's determined to find this man. And in her journey, she meets many despicable men, truck drivers, and other kind of people that she seeks because she thinks, you know, that might be the guy. And so she's trying to find him. And every chapter is a different person that she meets through her journey. And I thought that was so interesting to tell the story, but also the people that she meets, they are the worst of the worst of the worst multiplied by the worst. And so you're going to find here so much violence and blood, and it's just perverted and depraved, and yeah. This book doesn't have redeeming qualities when it comes to happiness, hope. It's just a mother's grief that is willing to do absolutely anything to find her daughter's killer and get revenge, basically. This book is really devastating because the main character's story and her daughter's story, Rebecca's story, is really hard to read at times, especially I think if you have teenage daughters and you're sensitive to this type of topic. Even if you are used to reading, you know, really messed up books, maybe it might not be for you because it is quite intense. So I really enjoyed it. But like I said, I would not recommend this to anybody because it is quite gruesome. Moving on to something more approachable to the public. And that is the book that I read with my Patreons this month of November. It is Escape from Happydale by Jack Quaid, and it is the first book on, I believe, a trilogy. And when I started reading this book, I was a little bit confused because the beginning is basically someone telling you how they discovered this manuscript of what it is now the book, and they talk to you about the author and how the manuscript was discovered, how they managed to publish it and everything. It makes you believe that it is a real story, but it is all part of fiction. I realized it was fiction when I started reading the actual book after the prologue and all of that, and I realized that the writing style, the tropes, the commentary on things felt very modern to me, so I thought it's possibly not a manuscript from the 80s, absolutely not, it does not read like that, and I was correct. But it is very interesting because at the beginning you feel like the story they're telling you is true. This is a perfect book for fans of slashers. It has everything you want. It has a lot of action, fast pace, short chapters. It has a lot of slashing and blood and gore and all the tropes of the slasher books and movies all in one book. And I flew through this book. It's so easy to read, so comforting, and even though it's gruesome and it has many brutal deaths, that's exactly what I wanted. Plus the book, it is set in the 80s, so you also get a little bit of the 80s vibe. The book is told through multiple POVs, and these are all people that have something in common. They are all trying to survive the night. They are all trying to survive from this slasher, this killer. And I love that because you kept changing POVs, but it made the story so good. I really loved the continuous change of POV, and I felt like it gave the story a lot more of depth, and it kind of made you connect with the small town, the people that live in it. You get to know the sheriff, you get to know people that work in the hospital, and it kind of built this small world, and I love that. There is a lot of butchering in this book. A lot of people get killed. Now, not everybody deserves to die in these gruesome ways. A couple of them maybe had it coming, because there's a couple of characters here that I'm like, I can't wait for you to die because you're horrible. But for the most part, it's characters that you don't want to die, but some of them still do. So prepare to get your heart broken. It has, you know, kills and blood and gore and all the fun tropes of a slasher, fast-paced, action-packed. Like I said, if you love slashers, if you love horror, this book's for you. And I'm definitely gonna be picking up the second book in the series. Now we have my comfort read for November, which was Lockwood & Co. book number 3, The Hollow Boy by Jonathan Stroud. And this one, I think it might be my favorite so far, just because I read this so quickly. I was so invested and I loved returning to this world, so now I have really an itch to finish the series. In the third book, we are obviously still in London and we still follow Lockwood & Co. and the 3 main characters from the other books, and this time London is facing a really big problem. They have a focus in London that keeps creating ghost apparitions and puts people in danger, so much so that they had to evacuate whole areas, and they have almost all the agencies in London fighting against it without success. But then, of course, they will finally invite Lockwood & Co. to help them. Now, the only thing about this book that I was not such a big fan of is that obviously because Lockwood & Co. starts to get more and more jobs because they're starting to become a little bit popular, they have so much work that they are behind on things and taking care of their, you know, home base and everything. So Lockwood makes the executive decision to bring a new member to the team, and that is Holly. Holly is going to do mostly paperwork, help them organize stuff, help them get the cases, all of that stuff, and help them around the house. But Lucy gets very jealous of Holly, and I didn't like that extreme jealousy at some point. I felt like it was a little bit out of character for Lucy, but then I started thinking of Lucy's backstory that we got to know in book 1. So knowing where she came from, what happened to her, and now she finally found Lockwood and she's finally happy doing something that she's good at. And then this new girl comes in, and I kind of understand why she felt it was a threat, because she didn't want anybody to take her spot. And, you know, I was a little bit sad that it was, you know, girl against girl and jealousy, because it's something that it's not necessary. But it didn't like completely ruin my reading experience or anything, but I feel like I only gave it 4.5 instead of 5 because of that. This series is definitely what it was pitched to me, which is kind of like a Harry Potter feel to it, but with a lot more horror. So it is creepy, you have found family, you have cases to solve, puzzles to solve, and it's so comforting and so easy to read. Even though they are chunky books, you will fly through them. So definitely pick up this series if you're looking for something to read with ghosts and a little bit of fantasy in it, I would say even. It is great. It is great and very, very approachable for all types of readers that are not ready yet to read adult horror. And last but not least, the month of November, I have the book that I have promoted, and I have the book that I have made many people buy. Hashtag no apologies. And that is Dead of Winter by Darcy Coates. Here we are. Funny enough, this book was on my wish list and I wanted to give it a chance. It's also a book that has been published this year in 2024. And then when I was in Germany, I walked into a bookstore. I didn't know if I was gonna buy anything at all, but I saw the copy of this book and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a copy and I'm gonna read it this winter, and I'm gonna give another shot to Darcy Coates, because so far I have only read The Haunting of Ashbourne House and I really enjoyed it, but it was not like an all-time favorite or anything, and I wanted to give the author another shot. And this story felt like the perfect read for me, because we follow strangers that are trapped somewhere and they're being murdered one by one, and I was like, that sounds more like my cup of tea. So I bought it, I read it, I recommended it to everybody, everybody bought it, and I'm pleased to report that this was a smash. This is a book perfect for the winter. We are in an isolated, abandoned hunting cabin in the middle of nowhere. Basically, there was a tour that was on their way to a beautiful lodge in the middle of the mountains to spend 2 weeks isolated from civilization, and the people that are in that bus end up stranded in the middle of a snowstorm, and they have to look for somewhere where they can spend the night, and they find this abandoned hunting cabin. So they all go in there, the tour guide and all of the passengers from the bus, they are all there trying to figure out, you know, what to do because the weather is not getting better. And the first night, someone gets killed. Someone gets killed, and now we're in a pickle. Somebody is targeting this group of people and they're being killed one by one. They don't know if it's somebody from the outside that it's coming to them, which would be weird because they are completely isolated from civilization. Nobody knows that they're there. So the most logical thing is that it is one of them. So who is the killer? Who is killing them one by one? There are a lot of characters at the beginning of the book and they are all introduced, and you know, you get to know what they do for a living and what their relationship with each other is. And then at some point you get less and less characters as they are being butchered. So you're like, oh, maybe I thought it was this person, but now that person is dead. So who was it then? And it is such a good murder mystery that keeps you guessing. This is another one that it's perfect for people that love Agatha Christie, definitely. And with the winter setting, it's just perfect for December. So if you're still looking for something to read in December, this is my recommendation to you. It's a classic example of a whodunit, and the tensions are rising between the group of people. Some of them know each other, you know, because we have couples that were going to the lodge to spend a romantic 2 weeks. Others is like son and father. So some of them know each other, but then they are strangers to the rest, and you don't know who to trust. This book has multiple twists, and even though there were some that I saw coming, it did not you know, affect my reading experience. I was invested. I wanted to keep reading. It kept me at the edge of my seat. The tension was rising. When I ended a chapter, I wanted to go to the next one because I needed to know. And as people were being killed, I was like, what the hell? Who is it then? And you get really into that kind of like detective mind where you're trying to, you know, put the pieces of the puzzle together. You can even take notes for this one, you know, of all the characters and things that they've done, and try to puzzle it, and it's so much fun. What I would like to tell you though, this book was a lot more bloody and gory and violent than I anticipated. So plus points for that. Honestly, I didn't expect this book to be so gruesome, and when it went there and things happened, I was like, the visual you're giving me right now, chef's kiss. But I cannot really talk about it because I think it will be a spoiler. But if you read the book, let me know what you thought about the gore and the way the bodies appeared in this book. It was really good. It was really good. I loved it. This is such a great whodunit murder mystery in an isolated, cold location with a group of people that are, for the majority, strangers, and they don't know who to trust, and the tension, and you know, it's so much fun. It's a lot of fun. So this has been my favorite read on the month of November. So that is everything that I managed to read during the month of November. I am quite pleased because, as I've said, I've been traveling and busy and I have not had much time, so I'm really glad that I managed to read 8 things. And apart from a DNF and one that I didn't really enjoy, the rest have been at least 3.5 plus, so it was not a bad reading month. Let me know down below how your November went. Did you participate in the EvilAthon? Which books did you read? Which one was your favorite from the ones that you did read? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to support me directly and the channel, the link to the Patreon is down below. I have many new plans for 2025. And thank you guys as always so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up, and I hope to see you all as always in our next coffee time. Bye!